Hey friends, this is Worm here. I'm going to be talking a little bit quieter throughout this video because I just put little Crota down to bed, but I wanted to talk about something that has been kind of pondering my mind for a while now, and I just haven't really got around to talking about it in a video. So I figured we'd talk about that today. But before we go into that, there are a lot of you that watch my videos that aren't subscribed. So please go down there, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that bell so that you can get notifications when I post. We do daily discussions and debates like this in Destiny all the time. So go and do that right now. But without further ado, I wanted to talk about why loot in Destiny 2 does not feel as rewarding as it once did in Destiny. Now, Destiny's history it's long. Okay, we have 9 years worth of history, almost 10, right? Like we are almost to 10 years worth of Destiny history, and I think that it's no secret there's a lot of things that have changed in the past, right? A lot of things have changed, and that's a good thing. You know, we have things like class abilities, which we didn't have in Destiny 1, and class abilities are a fundamental part of Destiny 2 now. They're fantastic. You know, we have a whole host of new supers and new abilities, which all of these things are fantastic for Destiny 2. But I think with it also came a lack of a rewarding feeling when obtaining loot. Now, this is not to be confused with there's no emotion to loot whatsoever, right? Like, you know, I just got Necrochasm this weekend, albeit I used the weapon glitch to get it, but man, it felt good to get it done, right? Because I sat there for a couple of hours doing Iryu and Crota over and over and over and over and over again, you know? And so when I got it, it felt good, and I use it quite a bit. It's really good. I've got the catalyst not equipped, but I have the catalyst. I'm still working on the essence to get it unlocked and whatnot, but it feels good. You know, it always feels good to get, that last red border that you need to complete a weapons pattern, right? It always feels good to get, that god roll of whatever it is. If you're doing Root of Nightmares master mode and you get that god roll Rufus's Fury that you've been looking for, and now you can enhance the traits and stuff like that. Like, that's feels good, but does it feel as good as it once did? And I think the overwhelming answer is no, it doesn't. And I want to talk about a couple of my theories as to why it doesn't feel like that, and maybe some things that Bungie can do to change it, right? So I want to start with the elephant in the room, and that is that no matter how much Bungie changes the loot system, people like myself and probably you who's watching this video are going to feel less rewarded by loot as time goes on. And the reason why is because we sink so much time into the game that no amount of changes and stuff like that are really going to help us feel like loot is just so rewarding, right? And that's an inevitable fact. That's something that Bungie has no control over. That's something that's, really the only person that has control over is you or myself, who can adjust the amount of time that we play in the game, right? So I think that's, we need to get that out of the way because there's nothing really that we can do about that. However, I think there are some things, like I said, that Bungie can do to make it a little bit better. And we'll talk about those in just a second, but I wanted to talk about the other reasons why loot does not feel as rewarding as it once did in Destiny 1. Now, the first thing, and it's kind of no secret, is the drop rate of legendary weapons. Legendary weapons are the staple of Destiny 2's existence, right? Like, yes, exotics are cool. Don't get me wrong, I love exotics. Subclasses are cool. The builds that you can do with subclasses and the synergies you can make with exotics and subclasses are all fantastic. But let's be honest, the staple of Destiny 2 is legendary weapons. If somebody said, "Hey, you've got to go into this Trials game," one Trials game is all you get, and you have to win. I guarantee you a good majority of you are going to choose legendary weapons over exotic weapons, right? Legendary weapons make up most of our arsenal. We've got 4 legendary pieces of armor on, and we've got 2 legendary weapons on at all times. Like, legendary weapons and armor make up what Destiny 2 is today. And if we compare Destiny 2 in its current state to how Destiny 1 was way back in the day, the amount of legendaries that we're getting now compared to way back then is substantially different. right? Like if I were to ask you, hey, what was the first legendary weapon you got in Destiny 2? The chances are you probably won't remember it, right? I'm not saying everybody. I don't remember the first legendary I got in Destiny 2, but I damn sure remember the first legendary I got in Destiny 1. It was Invisible Hand with full auto, and I think it was Rangefinder, right? Like I vividly remember that. Why? Because I had been playing for a couple of weeks and I had finally gotten this purple Ingram to drop. I was on the Cosmodrome. I was in the steps of all places. I was in the steps in that middle building, kind of underground, killing Fallen, and it dropped. And I was like dumbfounded. I was like, oh my God. I ran over to it. I picked it up, and I immediately went to the tower to decrypt it. Like it was a big deal to get legendaries like that back in Destiny 1 because they didn't just drop like candy like they do now. Legendaries were obtained by doing high level stuff, things like Nightfalls, raids. What else here? You could buy them from certain factions for a pretty substantial amount of, whatever currency it was that was used to buy them. And of course, the roles that you could buy were stagnant. Like they changed from week to week, but if, that pulse rifle that you thought looked really cool had a bad roll, you had to wait till the next week, or get super lucky in a Nightfall or something like that. Nowadays, I get dozens of legendaries a day, and literally I just dismantle them all, right? Because Bungie has gone and they've taken the structure of the tier, I guess, of loot, and they've totally devalued it, right? Now, that doesn't mean they've devalued all the loot together, because obviously there's high stat legendary armor and there's low stat legendary armor. Like most of the legendary armor you get from, doing whatever, patrol mission, blah, 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 is low stat and it's immediately dismantled. Then raid armor, for example, is high stat, 60, 66 to 68 stat rolls. That's really good, right? But I think that Bungie has made loot drop a lot more than it once did. And again, this is a veteran talking here, right? Because I guarantee you that new players who, have just started in Destiny 2 are probably like, I don't know how the heck you're getting into rain legendaries because I don't, blah, 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 whatever stuff like that. But even in Destiny 1, like at level 30, in original Destiny 1 at level 30, you still got a majority of blue items, right? You still got blues, and getting a random purple drop was exciting. And it's lost that now. And especially, Bungie a couple seasons ago, they removed the blues that you get. Like once you hit the soft cap, you no longer get blue tier or rare tier drops anymore, right? And I feel like that kind of just further devalued the loot and made it feel less rewarding, because now it doesn't feel like a looter shooter, right? It feels like, okay, like, I get legendary weapons, cool, sure, like that's great and all, right? Outside of that, though, I don't get excited over purples anymore like I did back in Destiny 1. And yes, there are some weapons that like, oh, hey, I got this. Hey, it's got a pretty good roll. I'll keep it and try it out. Like, yes, that still does happen from time to time, but it doesn't happen all that often, right? And we can talk about a potential fix for that in just a second, but I think that's the number one reason is they've just really ramped up the amount of legendary drops that you get in Destiny 2. But not only did they ramp up the amount of legendary drops, but they have totally eliminated an element of RNG that came with loots through weapon focusing and weapon crafting. Now, I'll say this, I would never go back and change weapon crafting. I think weapon crafting is a really, really good like thing to have in the game. Rufus's Fury, for example. I have Rufus's Fury craftable. I can tailor that gun the exact way I want. If I want a trials roll, okay, I can go in there and I can put on all the perks I'd want for PvP. If I want a Rufus's Fury for my Warlock, I can go in there and I can customize it so that it fits my Warlock's build, or it can fit, as you see in this video right here, it can fit my Titan's build. Like I can custom tailor these things, and it's really, really awesome. And it wasn't really that like, it was rewarding to get to. Like it took me a few weeks of doing Root of Nightmares, having to kill Nezarec, having to do certain encounters till I finally got it. Like I didn't just get uber lucky like I did with Trustee, for example. With Rufus's Fury, I had to grind it and work for it. So that did feel rewarding to finally unlock the pattern for it. And I use the weapon constantly, right? So I wouldn't change, the weapon crafting at all, right? And the same thing kind of with Ingram focusing, for example, last season in Season the Deep, we got these Gambit weapons back. Things like Outlast, Spare Rations, what else was in there? Gnawing Hunger, I think, might have been one of them. These are not craftable, but you can focus them. You can use 4 engrams to focus and go for the role that you are specifically looking for. And again, like, I think that is a good thing to have, right? Because nothing is worse than being locked out of getting something you really want because of an overwhelming amount of RNG. If you're looking for that god roll, like Sinuna, for example, stasis sidearm, stasis 3-round burst sidearm, you've got a lot of work ahead of you because that's completely random world drop. Like, you can't focus those or anything like that. But at the same time, that also brings up the value and the excitement, because if you're looking for that one thing to complete your build, you've got a stasis hunter that you're absolutely in love with, and you're just waiting on that Sinuna, because that Sinuna has a really good role that's going to fit perfectly with your build. It's going to feel good to get a Sinuna. You're going to be like, okay, please have the role I'm looking for. And you look, it's not it. Oh, dang it. Okay. But I think that this is the irony that Bungie has done here with, having these world drops, is it feels almost impossible to get the role that you're looking for. So it's not really something you're going after. Like, if you think about Destiny 1, like, you're looking for, Praetorian Foil, which was a Destiny 1 Voltaglass fusion rifle, right? You know how to get it. You can go in there, you can do the raid, and you can get it, and you can say, okay, I finally got it. I'm done. Woohoo, like, I'll put it in my build, use it, blah, 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 whatever, or something like that. But in Destiny 2, with these world drops, like, you have no control over when you get it or when you don't get it. And so if you're looking for Sinuna, for example, and you can't focus it, like, it's frustrating. So you don't necessarily, like, care. Like, you're just like, yeah, if I get it, I get it, But I think that's another reason why loot has been devalued, is because either there's too much of it, or there's too little of a chance of getting what you want, that your hopes for getting it are just killed, right? It's either here or here. There's nothing right in the middle, for Bungie. And I think that Bungie has the potential to find that, that medium, so to speak, if they work hard enough at it. So I want to talk about what Bungie could potentially do, and some ideas that I had that I think would work, and things that I think wouldn't work, right? The first thing that I thought of was, well, it's simple. Reduce the amount of legendary drops we get, right? That, right off the bat, though, we all know it wouldn't work. Okay, we saw what happened when Bungie implemented skill-based matchmaking into the regular, like, 6v6 playlist, right? Everybody started leaving games. And so that built the precedent of just leave a game if you don't like it. Then Bungie implemented the whole, well, if you leave games, you get this, penalty, blah, blah, blah. And then they backtracked on it. But now, like, if I get in a game and we're playing against a team who's good, my team leaves, 2 or 3 people will leave almost every single time. And I'm like, man, I want to play this game. I wanted to play this game. But, like, if 2 or 3 people leave the match, why should I subject myself to what is for sure going to be a loss? Number one. Number two, I'm not going to have fun if I'm getting farmed because there's only 3 or 4 people on my team, right? So then I leave too, and that ruins my fun. And I know, like, everybody has different opinions on that, but the point of that analogy is that the same thing would happen if they reduced loot drops. Like, before they implemented skill-based matchmaking, I rarely saw people leaving games. But that's what players resorted to, and they tried to stop and it didn't work. And now players just leave games because that precedent was established. We're getting so many legendary drops that precedent has been established. If they draw back on the amount of legendary drops that we're getting, players are not going to be happy. I'm not going to be happy. That's for sure. Like, that's my infusion fuel. That's how I get my shards, which I know shards are going away, but that's how I get shards. That's how I get glimmer. Like, that's how I get a lot of stuff. So I wouldn't really be happy about that. So I don't think that just reducing the number of drops would work, right? But beyond just that, I was thinking, okay, well, in terms of legendaries, right? In terms of legendaries, what else could we potentially do to help with this? And I thought, we'll make every weapon craftable, right? Like, then, you get frames in the world. Maybe you get a red box, maybe you don't, right? But as you get these world drop weapons, you know, you can make them craftable, or maybe they have a deep sight frame so that you can craft them. And this was like, oh wow, I think that would be a good idea. But again, I started thinking about it, I was like, well, like, if you play as much as I do and you get all those weapon drops and you get all those patterns, after you get all those patterns, really, what's the point of playing anymore outside of just the fun factor? Which I can play Destiny for the fun factor. You know, I can play in the Crucible, never mind loot. Like, I play the Crucible for fun, right? I'm not a loot chaser when it comes to Crucible, but everything else I do in the game, I do partially for loot, right? And if literally every single legendary weapon was taken out of the game because you could now craft it, it would ruin a lot of players' fun and experience behind getting those exciting drops and stuff like that. So that was 2 ideas I had for legendaries that I don't think would really work. No, I think for legendaries, there's really only one option that Bungie has to make legendaries feel like, I guess, more rewarding, right? And that is every year in the major expansion, they need to bring in like 30 to 40, I would say even 50 weapons. Like, I don't care if they are old reskins from previous DLCs that are sunset. Like, I don't care what they are, but bring in these old weapons, 50, you know, 30, 40, 50 of them. 50 being obviously like the most optimal number, right? Because we get so much loot. It's like, oh, like, my God, like, you know, like it rains legendaries. But how many times can I get Lodbrok before I'm like, okay, I'm sick of getting Lodbroks? You know, how many times can I get a Sanuna before I'm sick of getting Sanunas? But if they brought in 50 legendary weapons with all these different perks, you know, and traits and stuff like that, that would definitely spice things up, because then it's like, okay, like, you know, I have, you know, these 2 or 3 different Strand auto rifles that I want to chase, or, you know, this new Strand rocket launcher that I could potentially get. You know, and then players would have a reason to go in and grind legendary stuff. Like, hey, I want to go and grind legendaries because I'm hoping to get a god roll on this new Strand machine gun, for example. Right? And then it's like, well, yeah, but Worm, you know, people are going to have to the chance of you getting what you're looking for is so minuscule that, like, it almost doesn't exist. But that's kind of what I mean, I feel like that would almost be best for Destiny, right? Like, we have so many craftable weapons right now that basically any weapon in the world loot pool that drops is kind of outclassed by our crafted weapons, right? But if you had all these new weapons, you could sit and get a new weapon every so often. It's like, wow, I want to go try this out. Not only like adding 40 to 50 new weapons, but give these weapons unique perk pools, right? Go back in time and grab old perks from the past, rework them. Things like Underdog, for example. Underdog is a perk. I think the only weapon it currently drops on is the legal action. I literally think that's the only weapon that it drops on in game currently. But Underdog was a perk where basically, if your health was low, you reload faster. Take that perk, rework it in some simple yet effective way to make it more viable, and then slap it on a gun. And then, you know, maybe do something crazy like slapping Demolitionist, for example, in the 3rd column. There are not many legendary weapons that have Demolitionist in the 3rd column. And most of the weapons that do have Demo in the 3rd column are raid weapons or other in-game weapons, right? But Bungie did something really cool this season. They brought Unending Tempest, which is the Crucible Stasis SMG. It can get Demolitionist in the 3rd column. So you can roll Demolitionist headstone. That is exactly what I want for my Stasis Titan. That is literally what I want for my Stasis Titan. I got that roll. Very, very excited about it. That kindled that, ooh, this is exciting, right? Now imagine if we had 30 to 40 weapons that had these unique combinations of rolls, like, ooh, I want to get this, I want to try it. Instead of, I see it, the perks are trash, I'm dismantling it. And again, that kind of loops back into what I said earlier about if you play the game for so long, you know what's bad and what's good. Like, if I get a submachine gun, for example, with Sympathetic Arsenal and, I don't know, Ambitious Assassin, I know it's getting dismantled because that perk combo, not really that good. It kind of sucks, right? New players, maybe they want to test it out and try it out. But, you know, as a veteran player, like, that's one of those things that, like, I have to just come to accept, right? Is that there's gonna be weapons that are gonna have, you know, perks that I don't care about and like. I'm gonna take one look at the weapon. I'm gonna see the perks. They suck. It's dismantled, right? That's something that we can't get away from as veteran players. But I think that Bungie adding in a bunch of legendary weapons as just completely random drops, not focusable or anything like that, you know, maybe or maybe actually maybe have them be more focused. Maybe put on a ghost mod. Like create ghost mods that when you have this ghost mod equipped, you're more likely to get a kinetic weapon from world drops. Not every single weapon's gonna be kinetic, but you have a higher chance of getting kinetics or strand or stasis, you know, blah blah blah, whatever class weapon you want, right? That would be cool. That would help players to get like kind of focus what they're looking for without truly focusing and getting just, you know, 50 outlasts till they get the role that they want, right? I think that would help loot feel a little bit more rewarding. But the next thing I want to talk about is, of course, exotic weapons, because man, how exotic weapons have fallen from grace. And exotic weapons, I mean, back in Destiny 1, exotic weapons, they hit different. I mean, in both good ways and bad ways. Obviously, we don't want to go back to the days in Destiny 1 where certain exotics are required to do activities. Like, I remember Crota's Inn when it first drops. I mean, if you didn't have Gjallarhorn, you could not do it. And of course, back then, almost every exotic in the game was tied to complete RNG. Like, you could invest 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, play for months on end, and not get Gjallarhorn because it was just RNG, right? That's kind of problematic, you know. That led to Bungie doing some things with Gjallarhorn that, you know, made it more open to players and stuff like that. But I don't think that necessarily doing that is the problem, but think about the power that exotics had back in Destiny 1. Like, they were very, very rare. You know, I could go in Destiny, I could hop on literally tonight. I'm about to get on tonight. I guarantee you I can pull probably 3 or 4 exotic engrams before I go to bed in like 3 hours, 4 hours roughly, right? That's not rare. Back in Destiny 1, you had, I want to say, 3 ways to get exotics, right? In initial early D1 days, right? You had Nightfall Strikes, you had the Raid, and you had Xur, right? And killing Atheon could, of course, obviously you get the Raid exotic, but you could also get other random exotics. You know, you could get a Gjallarhorn from killing Atheon too. You know, you could get a Red Death from doing a Nightfall. You could get, you know, Sunbracers from Xur. You know, there were ways to get exotics, but they were substantially more rare. Now, I guarantee you, every single day that I play, I get at least 1 exotic engram. Like, if I sit and play for at least an hour and a half, I get 1 exotic engram from just a random world drop. That doesn't really make exotics feel super unique or special. And again, this one of the differences between Destiny 1 and Destiny 2 is original Destiny 1, there wasn't a kiosk to, you know, go to, you know, where your exotics were collected, so to speak, and you can go pull them at any time. Like, if you got a Red Death and you liked it, you had to make sure to keep it on your character or in your vaults. If you ever dismantled it, it was gone until you were lucky enough to get it again through a random world drop. And I don't think we need to go back to that necessarily. And that's one of the changes that's happened between Destiny 1 and 2. That, again, I think it was good, but it did somewhat devalue exotics, at least a little bit, right? But exotics, they drop incredibly common now. And exotics, they don't feel necessarily hold on. I don't want to say they don't feel exotic, but exotics don't feel like something that is meant to be super powerful and really strong. Like, exotics to me feel more like they're added to just amplify or change up the way you play. You know, for example, necrotic grips, you know, paired with osteostriga. Osteostriga is great on its own. Necrotic grip's pretty good on their own, but you combine them and you get this really strong build. It augments the way that you play, but neither feel really rare or like crazy in any way, like they did back in Destiny 1. You know, you got I'm trying to think what's a really strong Destiny 1 exotic. Helm of Saint 14. You know, you got a Helm of Saint 14. That was a really strong exotic. You know, and then you could pair it with, I don't know, what was the name of that arc auto rifle? Zalo Supercell. You know, Zalo Supercell, very, very strong exotic. Like they felt really strong back in Destiny 1. And between Destiny 1, Destiny 2, and Destiny 1, the exotics felt really strong, were really rare. Destiny 2, exotics didn't quite feel as strong, but they're more common, right? And this, I don't really know what Bungie could do about exotics, you know, because obviously, and again, as a veteran player, like, I know that it's inevitable I'm going to have every exotic. Like, they're only introducing you know, 3 exotic armor pieces a season, 1 per character, and 2 to 3 exotic weapons per season, like, I'm gonna get them all really, really quick into the season. That's no secrets. So I'm not necessarily complaining about exotics, because I know, like, I don't know, like, for me, like, I could do things to make it more drawn out and make it feel more special, but you know, I don't know what Bungie could do about exotics to make them feel better. I would say maybe just reduce the drop rate on them, you know, which I know that sounds crazy, but especially in the season we're living in currently, you can get 3 free exotics by doing your ritual playlist. Like, if you invest literally an hour a week into Destiny, you get 3 exotics just for an hour of gameplay. You know, 3 crucibles, 3 strikes, 3 gambit matches, and you got 3 exotics. Like, that's great and all, but like, I don't know. Like, I feel like that, again, it devalues exotics. And I think that, you know, Destiny has gone from more of a looter shooter to, oh, I don't know. I don't really know the genre that it would be called, but the loot doesn't feel exciting anymore. You know, and again, with exotics, I don't know how I'd change it, but I gave an idea for legendaries on how I think it could improve the game, you know, improve the rewarding feeling you get from getting these legendary weapons. And like I said, I know, yes, it feels good to get red border weapons from raids, for example. That feels fantastic. I love that feeling. But by and large, loot does not feel as rewarding. And I would love to see a fix for it. I would also love to hear your thoughts on what we've talked about today. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's probably pretty agreeable to the majority of you that watch this video that loot does feel a lot less rewarding in Destiny 2 than it did back in Destiny 1. But I want to hear your thoughts on how Bungie could change that to make the loot feel more rewarding. The loot that you get feel more rewarding. You know, I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Of course, if you like today's video, drop a like. It helps the channel out a lot. Please consider subscribing if you made it to the end here. It helps the channel. We're trying to grow. I am trying to make money off of YouTube. I'm not going to sugarcoat it or anything. Like, I'm a stay-at-home dad, right? And I want some income of some type. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. That's it for me. Do me a favor, guys. Watch the videos you see on the end screen, because for whatever reason, YouTube thinks you'll like them. And guys, I'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye for now.